I'd like to open the meeting of the Santa Barbara Unified Board of Education for May 10th, 2016. Dr. Cash, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Please stand. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Buenas tardes y bienvenidos. Para los miembros del público que desean escuchar traducción o interpretación simultánea en español, tenemos los aparatos disponibles. Muchas gracias.
We also have headsets for the hearing impaired. Please indicate if you need one. Introductions, proclamations, presentations, or recognitions. Dr. Cash.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Tonight's student report is coming from Dos Pueblos High School, and with us is the ASB President Nathan Alvarez. But before Nathan goes up and begins, I'd like to congratulate Nathan on being selected as one of 5 winners in the California Association of Latino Superintendents and Administrators Why Education Matters essay contest. He was one of 5 winners across the entire state of California. Nathan's essay earns him $1,000, which I'm sure he'll put to good use at college. And more importantly than that is that Nathan was accepted to the greatest university in the world, the University of Southern California. He will be a Trojan, and he's going to be in the engineering school at USC. Fight on, and let's hear the student report. Welcome, Nathan.
Hello, is this on? There you go. Hello, I'm Nathan. I'm the ASB president from Dos Pueblos High School, and I'll update you guys on what's going on around the schools around town. So at La Cuesta Alta Vista, they have their 2nd annual alternative ed prom at the Fest Parker on May 28th. Their senior awards will be held on May 25th. Now on to Dos Pueblos, we will have our prom at the Fest Parker on May 14th. And after prom, we'll be at Zoto's, where students will be able to eat free food, play games, go bowling, and win prizes. The leadership class is hosting our annual Chalk Festival from May 16th through the 20th, where groups of students are welcome to purchase squares of chalks at the school and compete for a chance to have a square at the Santa Barbara Missions Chalk Festival. And our Engineering Academy class will be going up to San Francisco for the annual Maker Faire to present the mechatronics project, which we're going to be finishing next week, and we're leaving on May 18th on Wednesday. And we have Bike to School Day tomorrow morning. We're having a big event for that, trying to get a bunch of students to bike, walk, skateboard, take the bus, any alternative forms of transportation rather than just regular driving. And all students that participate will be entered in chances to win prizes. The senior awards ceremony will be Tuesday, May 17th next week. And on to San Marcos High School. They have their spring musical 9 to 5. Their opening weekend was amazing, and you can catch the last 3 shows this Thursday through Saturday, May 12th through 14th at 7 p.m. They will have their ASB awards on Wednesday, June 1st at 9:30 a.m. in the Greek Theater. Their annual Royal Regatta will be on June 3rd at 3 p.m. And then lastly, Santa Barbara High School's report. They have their prom at the Santa Barbara Polo Fields on May 21st from 8 to 11 p.m. They have the Every 15 Minutes program taking place on May 18th through 19th. Their senior honors night will be June 1st at 6 p.m. and their graduation is June 8th at 6 p.m. That's all for the schools. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nathan. All right, so at this time I'd like Tetsudo Katsura to please come forward and stand next to Dr. Drati. And I'd like to tell the board and our community a little bit about your most recent accomplishment. Tetsudo participated. He's a student at La Colina Junior High School. I see a very proud principal, and I'm hopeful parents in the audience, and teacher. I see that. So Tetsudo participated in MathCon, which is an online math competition for students in grades 5 through 12, with grade level specific time tests of 40 questions in 40 minutes. Students take the test at their own school under the supervision of their teachers. This year, 44,000 students in grades 5 through 12 competed online in the first round of MathCon. From that pool of 44,000 students, 564 finalists, of which 14 came from La Colina Junior High School, were invited to Saturday's April 23rd, 2016 MathCon finals in Chicago. Students were given 70 minutes to answer 50 questions, and our Tetsudo Katsura took second place in the nation amongst all 7th grade students. He prepared for MathCon. I know that board members are thinking how you will prepare for MathCon by solving sample problems ahead of time. And he challenged himself by taking on 10th grade math problems as a 7th grader. So our heartfelt congratulations and great work to Tetsudo Katsura and La Colina Junior High School. Dr. Drotti has a certificate for you. Did you bring your parents? All right. Let's congratulate your parents as well. Boy, quite an accomplishment. On to the other part of our brain. Lacumber Junior High School will be holding a performing arts showcase on Thursday, May 19th. It's a free event, and if you enjoyed concert, band, vocal, as well as the famous Lacumber drum line, you'll be in for a treat. Make sure you come. Here at the district office, we're gearing up for our 2016 Professional Learning Week, which will take place June 13th through 16th. It's a time for our educators to work together district-wide to refine units of study, curriculum maps, assessments, and a lot more. As part of our 150th celebration, noted author Victor Villaseñor will be speaking at Lacumber Junior High School tomorrow, May 11th at 7 p.m. The following week, on May 20th, former astronaut Jose Hernandez will also speak at Lacumber Junior High School at 7 p.m. Want to really thank several of our foundations, particularly the J.S. Bauer Foundation, as well as local businesses, and as a result, both of those events are free to the public. On June 6th, which is the actual day of our 150th anniversary in 1866, when our district was established, the Presidio will be hosting an event at Alcama Theater. UCSB history professor Dr. Perisotto will talk about the earliest roots of public education in our community, and I'll talk a little bit about what we're doing now in Santa Barbara Unified School District and what kind of is ahead. If all goes as planned, a time capsule containing education-related items will be placed in the grounds of the Presidio, which was the site of our first classroom for the Santa Barbara Unified School District. And on a final note related to our 150th celebration, well-known Santa Barbara High School Dawn and City of Santa Barbara employee Mark Alvarado is leading the charge to ensure that our school district has our first ever float in the Fiesta Parade. So I'm going to bet that there will be some board members that will be asked to be on that float, and hopefully your new superintendent as well. And with that, that concludes the superintendent's report. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Cash. Board comments, correspondence, board? Ms. Simon.
So we have been very busy, and I think we're going to continue to be busy, but I did want to acknowledge that since our last meeting, we had the Hope Awards, and our superintendent, Dr. Cash, was recognized, and that was a big effort by the Santa Barbara Foundation, which is a great partner to us. We also had a pretty incredible staff celebration ceremony, the Star Awards, so congratulations to Mitch Tarina and team. I know it was a team effort, but that was pretty incredible. The videos that that we watched were amazing. Just seeing all the work and the human beings that are behind every single one of our schools. It was pretty incredible. I also had the opportunity to spend my Friday afternoon at Harding Elementary School, and I have to tell you, despite maybe raining, a little bit weather, there was mariachi, there was dancing, there was incredible people, and student performances there on Friday afternoon celebrating, and so that was a really nice event. And I know we are full of events this week and next week as well.
Yes. Mr. Herring.
A few more. Friday, the UCSB had their annual economic forecast project presentation. And fortunately, we had 40 of our students, plus teachers, attend complimentary of the UCSB project. And I'm sure they got tremendous information out of it. The Federal Reserve speaker was there. The local economist was there. Real estate, you name it, the entire gamut of economic vitality in this city was discussed and in this nation. Partners Education had their 37th, I think, annual award ceremony for mainly the CTE students in our community, in our schools. And again, very well attended, art students in almost every aspect of career tech was there and getting awards out at Bacara. So it was quite an experience for them. ICANN had several things this last week. Adelante had their ICANN show, art show. Cleveland had their ICANN art show. And then Friday night, Franklin Westside combined music programs, 150 kids playing every instrument you can imagine. And they've all learned in the last, from 10 years to 2 years ago, and coming together in one big orchestra and some are little pieces. Just a great experience. The Franklin Auditorium or the cafeteria was packed with people. Again, very well done. And also, Dr. Cash mentioned tomorrow night as a dyslexia speaker, but Thursday night, Safe Launch has a presentation on drug addiction and how to avoid it at 5 o'clock at La Cumbra.
I just want to note that from the last presentation or recognition of our students about the tremendous work that our teachers do. To have 14 students represented and 564 is just incredible, and that is in no small part due to our teachers and the work that they do, and I think that's something to be acknowledged. I know we have great students, but we also have great teachers. Moving on to announcement of closed session action, we have one thing to report, which is an appointment of a new principal in our school district. Would you like to?
Can I
Yeah, you
tell the world a little bit about this
Yes.
person? So you want to announce the vote first?
Yes, our vote was 5-0 in favor of appointing Mauricio Ortega to the principal position at Goleta Valley Junior High School.
So congratulations, Mauricio. Well, I would like to say that Mauricio is here tonight with his twin boys and his lovely wife, Kim, who is a teacher at La Cuesta High School. Mauricio attended Cal State Los Angeles. He attended the Grand Canyon University, received an MA in Curriculum Instruction and Educational Technology. He has a single subject credential in social science as well as an administrative credential. Almost his entire teaching career has been in the grade group in which he will now lead, and that is grades 6, 7, and 8. We are very excited. He was the unanimous choice of the panel. We're excited to have him as a principal in our district, and look forward to, even though I won't be working with him as the superintendent, I will be working with him as a parent at Goleta Valley Junior High School. And I look forward to that, and congratulations, Mauricio. You'll do great work.
Yes. On behalf of the board, we congratulate you on your appointment and wish you the best in your new job. Thank you. Moving on, we move to public comments on non-agenda matters within the jurisdiction of the Board of Education. I believe we have a number of speakers tonight.
We do. I'll read 3 names, and then if you can come up in order. First, we have Sandy Seal, and then Cherie Ray, and then Fabiola Gonzalez.
Hi, friends. Feels like I haven't been here in ages. Dos Pueblos Engineering Academy Foundation won a grant from a private family foundation to cover the cost of hiring an executive director. So I want to introduce you to Rebecca Summers. She's our new executive director, and she's an alumna of Dos Pueblos, and we're just really excited to have her, and she's going to say hello. But I just want you to know you're going to be getting email from her now.
Hi, I go by Becca, so you'll see that in my email. I'm so pleased to be a part of this amazing engineering academy. I graduated from DP in 1978, and just to give you a little context, I was a member. Can you hear me?
No, 78.
Yeah, what, 78? Oh, okay. Can you believe it? I was a member of the mime troupe and a varsity gymnast, things that, we don't see in high schools, thank goodness, anymore. Just kidding. Anyway, I'm pleased to be here. I graduated from Dos Pueblos, went on to Bennington College, and then on to Goddard College. I taught high school for 10 years. I started raising money for education, funding, writing grants for innovative practices, for innovative strategies, for after-school programming, for curriculum development, you name it, and I tried to fund it. I later moved to Boston. That was in New Hampshire. I later moved to Boston, where I was fundraised for some major nonprofits, and finally in 2012 came back to Santa Barbara, had enough of those long winters, and took a job with the Museum of Natural History, and now I am more than thrilled to come full circle back to my old campus and a beautiful new building to be part of the Academy. So I look forward to working with you all and getting to know you all better.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm just supportive. Coming here and joining us.
And I just want to give you the special thanks because I'm the only charger on this board right now. So, and I'm a graduate, I'm DP at class of 86. So thank you and welcome.
Thank you.
Okay.
Pretty exciting, huh?
Hi, my name is Sherry Ray. President Paz, board members, Superintendent Cash, and administrative team, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. This morning I spent a couple of hours watching the hearings of the Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee of the United States Senate. Among those senators hearing testimony about dyslexia were Senator Barbara Mikulski, Senator Elizabeth Warren, Senator Bob Casey, and Senator Bill Cassidy, who has been a champion in spreading information and awareness about dyslexia for years. Those providing testimony included Dr. Sally Shaywitz of the Yale Center for Dyslexia and Creativity. I love that. They spoke about 3 essential aspects in providing assistance for the 20% of our students who have this neurological difference in their brain that makes reading, writing, and spelling more difficult. They focused on the need for early identification, proper preparation programs and professional development for our teachers, and providing help, hope, and greater awareness for our communities. I want to thank you for being proactive in how we now address dyslexia in our schools and in our community, which is far beyond many districts. We are working hard in those 3 specific areas, and it's making a difference. As part of the continuing effort to provide hope, help, and greater awareness for our community, I also want to thank you for supporting the appearance of Pulitzer Prize-nominated author Victor Villaseñor in Santa Barbara. Tomorrow he'll be speaking at Santa Barbara High School to several classes of English students who are currently reading his classic Rain of Gold as part of their author talks at lunch. In the evening, he will speak to the community about growing up as a young Latino struggling in school with dyslexia that was not identified until he reached his 40s. A student I spoke to today at Santa Barbara High told me that this is that Reign of Gold was the first book she ever read cover to cover in high school, and she can't believe she gets to meet the author. This is the third year in a row our district has sponsored speaking engagements featuring a distinguished individual with dyslexia. All have been free to the public and Spanish interpreted. We have set an example for other districts to follow here in California and across the nation. As the mother of a student with dyslexia and a member of the communities concerned with the opportunities provided for other dyslexic students and families, thank you so much. And please attend either both or one of the events tomorrow at Santa Barbara High at 12:45 and at La Cumbre at 7 o'clock. And I met with Mr. Villaseñor a couple hours ago, and he's delighted to be here in Santa Barbara from Oceanside and looking forward to tomorrow's events. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening and buenas tardes. Dear honorable members of the board, my name is Fabiola Gonzalez, and on behalf of the Ethnic Studies Now Santa Barbara Coalition, I would like to share with you who we are, what our mission is, and what we can accomplish together. The Ethnic Studies Now Santa Barbara Coalition began as a part of a statewide Ethnic Studies Now movement. This movement developed in 2014 in the Los Angeles area. For those of you that may not be familiar with this movement or our coalition, our goal is to improve our schools so that all students are connected to their education in a meaningful way and are challenged to think critically as global citizens of the 21st century. The Ethnic Studies Now Santa Barbara Coalition is a community grassroots organization that is composed of local Santa Barbara high school, college, and university students, high school and college educators, parents of local students, and community leaders. As a coalition, we have been working to collaborate with the Santa Barbara Unified School District to create a positive, culturally proficient, and inclusive learning environment. We agree with the California Teachers Association that passed a motion in 2014 that states, the California Teachers Association supports the efforts of all California school districts and locals in making ethnic studies a graduation requirement so that all students have the opportunity to learn about our cultural diversity and history. This is important because Santa Barbara is a diverse city. We need to expand our knowledge and understanding so that we can live together and be together in a cooperative way in our neighborhoods, at school, in our jobs. So far, 8 districts in the state of California have passed an ethnic studies graduation requirement. This includes Los Angeles, El Rancho, Sacramento, Bassett, Montebello, El Monte, Woodland, and Coachella Valley Unified School District. Dr. Sleeter's 2011 research review reveals that 16 out of 17 studies demonstrated that both students of color and white students have been found to benefit academically and socially from ethnic studies. According to the National Census for Education statistics, ethnic minorities make up 50.3% of all students in the U.S. K-12 student population. Furthermore, according to the California Department of Education, 73% of California students are students of color, and over 90 languages are spoken in California district schools. In the Santa Barbara Unified School District, over 65% of our student population are students of color. And according to Kids Data, 50.1 students in our district are living with one or more parents that are foreign-born. So despite the 81.6% of Latino students that are graduating in this district, only 31.2% are prepared for college. So overall, these statistics are to really emphasize the demographic imperative as to why students need ethnic studies in the schools and how we can work together with the district and the school board in emphasizing and really fulfilling the mission of this district of serving every child, every chance, every day. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have some brochures.
And next, we have a speaker, Denelson Alvarez, followed by Isabel Hirata, followed by Chimaway Lopez.
Good afternoon. My name is Denelson Alvarez. Currently, I'm 17 years old and I'm an 11th grader at Dos Pueblos High School. First off, I'd like to thank you for doing so much for the students and for having this comment section for us. From the end of summer of 2014, a group of students and I worked not to get Chicano studies, but to get it back in our school as it had already been offered at Dos Pueblos before. Our hard work managed to get Chicano-Chicana studies at our school, along with Mexican-American literature. Our goal was to have a diverse group of students take the courses to understand us and create more unity between cultures. Although we got these classes at our school, they weren't enough. Being enrolled in higher level classes and having AVID as my elective, it is very hard to take these courses, like Chicano studies, and still be on the best path to get an opportunity for college. Because it is an elective and is in honors or AP, taking the class isn't really recommended. As a matter of fact, in our DP news section at our school, before the semester ended, they announced some of the electives that were available, that we were available to take. Guess what courses weren't announced? Chicano studies. And this is the same with classes like Mexican American literature and social dialogues. They're not really announced at our school. Our AVID teachers and counselors, they don't recommend we take these courses, not because they think they're bad, but because they also want the best opportunity for us to get to college. But why can't we have these courses available just like all the other courses? It would be like taking steps back to go from an AP to a college prep course. The percent of Hispanic students completing UC and CSU requirement courses in 2013-2014 was 31%, compared to 69% of white students completing these required courses. That's more than double the amount of students. Our recommendation is to make ethnic studies a requirement at our schools, to have culturally proficient teachers and counselors so that they can understand us and we feel more comfortable, and to have the school board listen to us and to take our recommendations as students who are trying to make a change in our schools. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Izzy Huerta. I'm a freshman at San Marcos High School and a youth leader here at the Ethnic Studies Now Coalition. First of all, I want to say thank you for listening. I hope that the school board recognizes that the Ethnic Studies Now Coalition dedication to the betterment of our community, that we share the same views, that we want to get to the same goal. The love and concern and mutual understanding for Santa Barbara is the foundation for this movement. The coalition is excited about the Santa Barbara Unified School District's recognition for the need to promote cultural proficiency as a key detail for developing global citizens of the 21st century. The coalition hosted a block party on April 9th for the public in order to spread awareness and create a forum for critical dialogue and an understanding around ethnic studies. This forum was attended by several hundred people representing the youth, community organizations, educators, and parents. We will continue to host public forums to promote learning and dialogue around these courses which seek to address the issues of racial, gender, and economic inequality in our community. We asked the school board to engage with the school district, staff, students, parents, and fellow coalition members, and in a committee whose task will be to propose the necessary changes to improve inclusiveness and cultural proficiency throughout our district. We hope that the school board and the district will collaborate in support of our coalition's efforts to educate the community about the need for cultural proficiency and the implementation of ethnic studies. Thank you.
Thank you.
Haku Haku, Chimowe Gakti. Hello, my name is Chimowe Lopez. I am a member of the Chumash community. Is the timer good?
Yes.
Okay. I'm a member of the Chumash community here in Santa Barbara, as well as a senior at Santa Barbara High School, and a member of the Santa Barbara Ethnic Studies Now Coalition. My support for ethnic studies stems from my experiences, both in this school district and as a student taking ethnic studies. I would like to elaborate on my experience in ethnic studies today. Social Dialogues, as I'm sure you know, is a one-semester course offered at 2 of our high schools here in Santa Barbara Unified School District. As someone who loves to learn, this course is a powerful source of challenging concepts and collaborative discourse that can only be described as truly educational. I can't help but wonder how my educational career could have been positively affected if I had been earlier exposed to this curriculum, as well as other courses that have social critical analysis and that could be added to the course catalog. It is clear to me that most of the other students taking social dialogues have a similar positive experience, exclaiming that this class should be mandatory for every student to take in the schools, and trying to enroll again after the first semester was over, as well as briefly organizing to have the Black Studies course reinstated at Santa Barbara High School, a task deemed impossible at such short notice. Why is social dialogues and other ethnic studies courses so popular among students and have such a positive effect over a broad range of criteria? It is my belief that ethnic studies answers a lot of questions for students about topics that are missing in our education system today. Racism, sexism, income inequality. These are topics that resonate with students, that deal with these issues in their daily life. By giving students tools to analyze social systems around them, you are empowering students to engage in independent study. This motivation to learn about the world around them and understand social constructs is extremely important. Individual study is a very...
30 seconds.
Thank you. Is an important skill to learn for taking advanced courses as well as in college. Ethnic studies also provides a safe place for students to discuss social issues that are often left out in public forums. The school district's current efforts to encourage cultural proficiency is a positive step forward, and I am very grateful for your work in this area. Ethnic Studies Now Coalition and this board have similar goals, if not the same goals. It is my hope to work together soon to create positive change in the school district. Thank you.
Thank you. And last we have Omar Yube.
Hello, board members. My name is Omar Uribe, and I am a Santa Barbara local, a current student at Santa Barbara City College, and also a member of the Ethnics Now Coalition. Ethnic Studies Now Coalition. Ethnic Studies Now wants educators with skills, knowledge, and attitudes to value the diversity amongst students that will contribute to an educational system designed to serve all students. Cultural competence is having an awareness of one's cultural identity and views about difference, and the ability to learn and build on the varying cultural and community norms of students and their families. It is the ability to understand the within groups differences that make each student unique while celebrating the between group variations that make our country a whole. We only want to provide what the school really needs, which is not only to broaden studies to all cultures, but also create diversity within classrooms and courses. This expansion will increase the inclusiveness of the current educational structure, which will not only help those students who have felt left out, but also will help close the academic gap, giving all schools a higher graduation rate. Ethnic studies outcomes also include an increase in GPA, reduces truancy, helps develop a greater cultural and historical understanding, and ensures the progress of academic and social resiliency for future success for all students. We want to work hard with the school in order to make this happen, and create a platform for more discussion and actions towards seeing ethnic studies as a requirement. This is important to all of us, because we all need to know each other's stories if we are going to live in a cooperative way on the job, in the communities, and at school. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to thank all the public speakers. Since this is an item that's on public comment and not a part of our agenda, we don't usually comment. So please understand we appreciate all your comments and every word you said, but we don't engage in a dialogue with you at this point in time until it becomes an agenda item. So thank you for coming.
May I make a comment, Mr. President?
Yes, be my guest.
So I would say that for all the cynics in our community that think there's issues in relationship to the critical thinking, the communication skills, the depth and talent of teenagers and youth, the people that spoke tonight, that are outstanding. And you guys make the future as bright as the brightest light that we have. I want to thank you so much for getting up and telling it like it is tonight. So, great job.
Thank you. You're welcome to stay.
I'll make a comment too, if it's okay.
Yes, be my guest.
You just heard from somebody who lives and breathes diversity and trying to solve these issues, and his whole life has been dedicated to it, Dr. Cash. Hope it continues into the future. If you do stay and hear the next discussion on the LCAP, where we spend our money, you'll see that there's a lot of money going into the vision that Dr. Cash has and Dr. Dottie and the whole staff. So if you do choose to leave, make sure you get a copy of the LCAP. We have another public meeting on it in 2 weeks, but you'll see an awful lot of things in there that deal with exactly what you're talking about.
And I would encourage you, if you don't come to this or stay for this part of the meeting, for all those who want to come or came out just for specifically the LCAP, you come back in 2 weeks and provide some input and feedback, because this is part of the process too. It's about where we spend our money, and so I encourage you to come back. Thank you. So that moves us to the consent agenda. Board, do you have anything you would like to pull or anything? If not, may I ask for a motion, please?
I'll move approval of the consent calendar.
I'll second it.
Motion made by Mr. Herron, seconded by Ms. Parker. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Now that moves us to our public hearing, discussion of a local control accountability plan. So we end our regular meeting and we go into our public hearing, and we do have one speaker on this item, is John Houchin.
John Houchin, Santa Barbara Teachers Association. Sorry, I'm kind of out of voice. Good evening, district trustees. I'm here tonight to share teacher feedback and to speak against the proposed expansion of the co-teaching model for the 2016-17 LCAP. SBTA contacted over 60 special education teachers for their feedback on co-teaching, and a majority of teachers have significant concerns. Ideally, the 3 agreements outlined in Wendy Morosky's book on co-teaching should be upheld. They are to provide a common prep period, avoid forced partnerships, and enroll no more than the recommended 30% special ed students in a class. These agreements have been repeatedly broken. Expanding the co-teaching model is problematic because special ed teacher prep time, which normally is used for an array of student-related tasks, has been supplanted by co-teaching responsibilities involving collaboration meetings, modifying lessons, worksheets, classroom assignments, and assessments. There are not enough SPED staff to teach in all content areas and not enough general ed teachers willing to co-teach. Increasing the number of co-taught classes diminishes the number of individual instruction classes that currently support special ed students. Some special ed educators are co-teaching in multiple subject areas, up to 5, and do not have adequate time to plan and confer with their co-teachers. This list represents less than half the concerns that teachers expressed. As of today, between retirements, non-reelects, and resignations, the district is losing almost 70 educators, many from special education. so there will be many new teachers to recruit and train for next year. In addition, this afternoon, I received notice from the district's coordinator of certificated personnel that, quote, special education is overstaffed and lots of changes are afloat, end of quote. Adding these challenges to the points presented, the decision to expand the co-teaching model next year does not seem viable, let alone desirable.
30 seconds.
I hope you will take these points into consideration when finalizing the LCAP for 2016-17. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Cash.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. You've seen the LCAP draft on many occasions, and so Dr. Drotti's not going to go through that. He has been the chairperson of the LCAP committee. Instead, he's going to go through the budget, which was requested, I believe, on a number of occasions. So here it is, Dr. Drotti.
At the last board meeting, I presented to the board a presentation on how the actions and goals have been realigned in the LCAP to match the aims of the school district, but we did not go over the budget. So at this meeting, I would like to I have before you the actual budget in the LCAP, and the way it's organized, and you've seen example, you've seen a copy of this, is we have 3 columns that we want to look at: the 2015-16 supplemental funding, and then also we have the 16-17 total funding, which is which includes the supplemental plus other resources that we report into the actual expenditure, and then lastly, the 16-17 change in supplemental funding. So with that information, I'm thinking I'll leave it up to you I can either go through each item, or we can just look at the different areas that changed. Would you rather me go through the whole thing, or just...
Board?
I'd rather just go through some of the changes.
Okay. So if you can, the first item we see there, the materials for construction technology CTE pathways. In the previous year, in 2015-16, we allocated $16,200 to support the construction programs of each high school. You'll see that in 16-17 that there is no funding from the supplemental grant afforded towards that. That is because we received a CTE grant from the state of California to implement the CTE programs across the district. And although we are not going to support it through the supplemental grant, but through that grant that we received from the state.
Can I ask a question about that table?
Yes.
It's confusing me when I saw it several times over the weekend.
Yes.
So let me understand it. 15-16, that's pretty straightforward. That was supplemental funding.
Yes.
And then the 16-17 total amount of funding, so is the change in supplemental funding or the total funding inclusive of supplemental funding in 16-17? Does the third column belong part of the second column?
No, it's just the supplemental funding, the 54% we
So the total funding is 215 plus the 116?
Yes.
No.
No, I'm sorry. 215 is the total.
Of that, 54% comes from supplemental funding.
Okay, so the 116 is part of the 215?
Yes.
Correct. Okay, thank you.
If we go down to 1 elementary librarians, if you remember, the previous year we actually had 2 elementary librarians. We allocated funding towards that effort. We have now reduced that to 1 librarian.
Because we can't find any. Anyone out there that would like to be a librarian for our elementary schools, please contact this gentleman right here, Mitch Tarina. It's been over a year we've tried to find 1.
The Equal Opportunity Schools program has been a great program for us to help us identify students that we often miss, that have the potential to actually take AP and IB courses and do REMA courses. In 2015-16, we allocated $33,000 towards that effort. This year, we did not allocate, we did not centralize the program. All 3 high schools feel that they have the mechanism now to be able to use that information and actually do their work on their own. If we scroll down to counselors.
Can you point out the lines for AVID, PEAK, cultural proficiency, equal opportunity?
Yes. Great, thank you. The AVID program is a program, one of our most successful programs that we have that supports students that are often have the potential to attend a 4-year college, and that we identify and actually provide study skills to help them be successful in these AP and IB courses. It's a nationally known program, and we target first-generation students, the students that the parents have not attended a 4-year university. So it's a great program that we do support, and we will continue to support it. The PEAK program.
Right below it.
There we go. The PEAK Initiative Community of Schools program is another program that's, I would, some people would want to call it, it's AVID on steroids. That's the nickname we've gotten. But we identified a program, program that La Cumbre and San Marcos High School engaged in which they identify students that have the potential to attend a 4-year college, and they track those students into specific classes and put them in cohorts, and they support them with mentors, tutors, and the evening programs in La Cumbre. And we found out the first graduating class graduated last year, and 100% of them were able to get accepted to a 4-year college. Because of the success of that program, we expanded it to the east side, and starting next year, we will expand it to Dos Pueblos and Goleta Valley.
I have a question on that one.
Yes.
So when I look at the budget expenditures, and I'm on page 9, what I appreciate about certain parts of the document is that it pretty clearly states how many people we're talking about with that supplemental amount of funding. On this one in particular, it doesn't list it. And same thing with AVID above it.
Okay.
So that's a challenge, I think, for not only us as a board, but I think even this, anyone picking up this document and as a member of the public. And maybe it's in here, but it's a little hidden.
Okay.
And I think that's one thing that I would suggest in terms of the LCAP is when we look at the supplemental piece to really break that down in terms of the number of people we're hiring or augmenting their time, or however we're using that funding for personnel, which a good portion obviously is towards that. So that would be really helpful. I know, like, for example, on facilities, we mentioned eight individuals, and that's great. You can get a sense of that. But this one, you have no idea.
Yes.
Board, any questions? Thank you.
Where does the $1 million come from?
It's a good question.
Under PEAK.
PEAK.
That's fundraising.
Fundraising.
I mean, what type of community?
The foundations.
Foundations?
Yes. It has been a very popular program that foundations like to support. So we want to continue to partner with them.
And I think that's another point too. I mean, it's great that we list the leverage funding, but even out of the $1 million, how much of that is dedicated personnel? Okay. It would be helpful. I know it's not. It's part of the LCAP, but the funding is not from the LCAP. So they wouldn't be doing it if we weren't putting money into it as well.
Yeah, we can certainly, in any of these budgets, if there's personnel tied to it, we can certainly identify how many people are supported by that.
Yes. Ms. Limon.
So I just generally want to comment on this because I think it's I was one of the people who really wanted this document, and I think it's very, very useful. I think it's probably one of our most user-friendly documents to read, but I do want to point out that what we see in here is increased services in our school district. There's counselors, there's expanded evening hours for libraries. But at the very bottom, we also have a section of things that our district is completely picking up, which includes the elementary art program and other areas. And so I just don't want it to get lost, and I want to make sure that the public sees that if I had to interpret this in the most simple way, that some of our programs that have been working are being expanded, and there's not a lot that's being pulled back. And so I just generally want to make those comments because I don't know, in some of the prior past meetings we've had just people comment on some of these areas, and I think our investment is laid out pretty well here. So
yes.
And I think that's a great point to bring out. It's the same point that I was trying to make with the additional leverage funding from outside donors, that you don't see the full impact within this document, even if you just look at the simple amounts that are out there.
Yes.
You're not really looking at all the details. If you picked up this document, which is quite big, 93 pages.
Yes.
There are a lot of items in here that the district is doing.
Absolutely.
And so we're not necessarily seeing it in terms of money, but we're seeing it in terms of impact, and that's the hard part for people to understand, because we're seeing a bunch of numbers on the screen right now.
Have some good news and bad news on the LCAP template front. The good news is that it will change. The bad news is that the State Board of Education will determine what those changes are, and they've been responsible for the 2 previous iterations. But the Superintendent's Council in the state of California is advocating strongly for a statewide required executive summary to be made that would be in a form that every district would be required to do. So, anyway.
Thank you. Thank you for the good and bad news.
Yeah.
Ms. Parker.
I'm not sure if we're interrupting you, Dr. Drotti, in a way that's appropriate or not.
No,
I'm
go ahead,
sorry.
please.
So I think we're all kind of moving in a more general way at this point. And what I wanted to point out or talk about a little bit is, we had Mr. Houchin up here talking about co-teaching. And while the LCAP includes references to special education in the sense that it is, they are part of all of our students and they overlap with a number of other subgroups.
Yes.
LCAPs are really not about special education separately. And so when I look at this, I don't see anything that funds co-teaching, for example.
Yes.
And I'm not sure if there is something in there that is an umbrella that I'm missing. But I don't know if you want to talk about that at all.
Yes. The co-teaching aspect, that's really funded through our general funds. And the reason why co-teaching exists is that the state has basically essentially said that students who are that are special education that are receiving a diploma, they should have access to the standard-based core curriculum. And that is to be taught by the content expert teacher, the general ed teacher. So in the past, we have had those students in resource classes taught strictly by the special education teacher. So we are aligning ourselves with the goals of the vision, with the goals and expectations of the state, and also to better support the special education student. What we do provide in the past in supporting special education is professional learning around co-teaching, and that is something we want to continue to do, to provide professional learning around that. But we did not assign supplemental funds for that effort. We have other funds that we're going to target towards that.
And Dr. Paz, if I can follow up, then I just want to point out, it's kind of a flaw with the LCAP process in that we are now so focused on the LCAP, and yet the LCAP is actually such a small percentage of our overall budget that I feel like we end up giving short shrift to where we're spending our LCFF money, our regular money from the state.
Absolutely.
And so we will have that budget come to us in June, but we end up not having the opportunity to talk about that in a broad way because we're just focused on this small
Absolutely.
piece of it. And so I do appreciate that a lot of times the LCAP kind of calls out our larger goals as well, but it is a bit of a dilemma and a problem that we are essentially not giving the public the opportunity to talk about the general fund.
Yes, it could be very deceiving if, I remember from previous years, we identified the line items to suggest that we were supporting honors or GATE programs. But if we don't actually look into the entire general budget, you don't actually see how many, what kind of resources we pour towards that effort. So it could be very deceiving if we're not careful.
Yes, I would agree. I think that's part of the thing of looking at this within sort of a bigger context, and we're not just looking at the numbers.
Yes.
Because that is not a lot of money when you look at our total amount of budget.
Yes.
But the thing to remember is that this LCAP is aligned with the district's strategic plan, and that's a fundamental shift for us. And so, and each one of the aims and the action items in the strategic plan are addressed in the LCAP now.
Great. Mr. Herron.
The document that I printed off the website seems to be missing a lot of information from a budget standpoint in each category. Is that going to be revised for the next meeting, or?
Yes. Yes, it's still in the draft form. We're finalizing details of this document here with Mrs. Jate, and once we get feedback today, we possibly may go back and make some adjustments, and I think once that's done, the other document will be finalized as well.
Okay. At the last meeting, you handed out an LCAP with 107 pages, and this one is now down to 103, I think it is. I tried to compare the two, and I noticed at the end was a written explanation of the budget aspect, but I noticed two things on that aren't in this, and there probably are more, but I just noticed two big ones. The 9th grade classroom size reduction, $371,000 from last year, and Common Core professional learning, $250,000. They were in the one you handed out 2 weeks ago, but I don't see them in this. Is that a change?
It's a change. It was an oversight from the previous time. The Common Core professional learning money, we're going to pay that out of another resource, which is the mandated money given, one-time mandated money given by the state.
But that was in the supplemental 15-16?
Yes.
But it's not on this chart.
Yeah, not on this one. So we're not going to pay for that service through.
No, but some of these you listed, and then it's blank under 16-17. So did you leave some off this that were blank? Okay.
Those two items you mentioned we did leave off, and I know some of you were interested in looking at which one we did leave off. So we left off this list the 9th grade class size reduction. We will not continue next year for the tune of about $371,000, and also the Common Core monies for $250K. That'll come out of the mandated money, but it's not on this list.
Are there others than those two? Are there other smaller ones or anything?
Those only two.
Ms. Parker.
I want to be careful when we're talking about 9th grade class size reduction, because the board has not had a discussion about that yet.
Yes.
And so I know that we're going to get a list of cuts to come in the near future. I'm not sure if it's the next board meeting or sometime soon, because obviously we have a budget coming up fast.
This is your opportunity to give us direction, because that would be part of the LCAP. So if the board wants that in the LCAP, we'd need to know that so that we can reflect that in the LCAP.
Yeah, so we should have that discussion.
So it's coming forward now for your input.
Well, it needs to be called out. Then we talked about having a list of cuts as I thought as a budget item. The LCAP is really part of the budget process, so maybe it needs to come to us as, with the LCAP. If there are things that we're cutting from the LCAP that are things that the public might want to know about or need to give some input on, then maybe that needs to be bumped up sooner rather than
Well, those
later.
are the two items that you've just heard Dr. Drotti.
Well, there were a lot more things that we're thinking about cutting, maybe not from the LCAP, but it's from the budget in general. We've
the
had that
entire general budget.
Right. So
Well,
I don't think
those
that we
things
can-
aren't actual cuts. They're just resources that aren't going to be allocated based upon a decline in enrollment.
But ninth grade class size reduction would
That is
be a
one.
change.
Right,
yeah.
so, and that was in the LCAP. So today would be a good time for us to receive board input on whether that should continue to be in the LCAP.
Right. Well, I don't know. I would love to get public feedback on that. This is our opportunity to let the community know that we're considering moving to a normal class size in ninth grade.
Okay.
And so we can talk about that at the next meeting.
Okay.
Continue.
Trying to remember where I left off here, so let me, I believe it's on, counselors, the 3 FTE counselors. We paid out of supplemental for that program, and I believe we moved that resource, we moved that resource to the general fund. So it's not going to be reflected in supplemental funds.
But Dr. Grata, you're not actually eliminating those positions.
No, but yes, I want to make that clear. We are not eliminating those positions. Thank you. If you go down to security system, Goleta Valley Junior High School, we also moved those resources to another resource. We felt that that portion of the we felt that that line item just didn't belong in the supplemental with the supplemental grant, so we moved it to another resource.
I might mention the canine detection is there, and this would be a good opportunity to discuss that again if anyone wants to.
I don't have a problem with discussing it, but I do think it should come forward as a separate agenda item, as it has in the past, but.
As a separate agenda item?
When the contract renewal process happens, not, the way we did it this year.
Okay.
The presumption is if it's in here, that we're going to do it. That's the historic presumption. We've always voted on it, but part of this process is saying this is going to be in the LCAP.
Right, and what would happen in this particular year was that the contract was on consent and it was pulled for a discussion. And so I think if it continues to happen that way, it gives those of us that are not in favor of it the opportunity to not vote on the contract, but not necessarily taking it out of this entire process, since at least historically it has gotten a majority vote. I think it's more out of principle at this point.
Yeah. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but a number of these either have or will come back to us as contracts at some point in the future.
And
Yes, like teacher match.
Yeah, like Hanover Research.
Yes.
Okay.
I think, and through this process, you're just telling us whether we should continue with it or not. And these are things that if we say we are, we still have to make sure we're contractual with these organizations.
So I have a general question, if it's okay. I'm trying to wrap my head around how to understand potential cuts. And so there's some cuts that are due to declining enrollment. There's some cuts that are due to positions that are just not going to be filled. But we heard in public comment also some cuts that are being made, for example, to special education. And so in my mind, special education isn't tied to enrollment, but instead tied to need. So I'm just trying to figure out how to think about all of this.
Well, special enrollment is special education has to be tied to enrollment.
Special education is tied to enrollment. I thought it was tied to whatever the IEP said, independent of our district enrollment.
Well, we wouldn't hire teachers if we didn't have special needs students. So the number of teachers that are required to provide those services is based on the number of special education students we have.
Right, and so I guess I didn't see that necessarily tied to our overall, like maybe just because it's such a unique population that
But if we have a decline in students with special needs, then we would necessarily have a decline in
we could, right?
special
Except
education.
that we get feedback that in some areas we have an increasing number of students with needs.
So if that would be
And
the
so-
case, then we'd have an increasing number of, and that's really an administrative function. That's not a policy function.
But I'm trying to understand how to wrap my head around the fact that we are, the LCAP is a small portion. We see some areas go up, mostly go up, but some go down and some go away. But that's not, those aren't the only areas that we're going to see cuts. And so there was a request made, to see a list, and I'm trying to figure out how to understand, not just from the small pull of the LCAP, but from the bigger budget, what are those real big changes that are happening that
They will be in, we wouldn't hire teachers unless we had students. And so we won't be hiring teachers unless students come to school. And our projection indicates that we will have fewer students to start the school year than we ended the school year with. As a result, we would need fewer teachers.
So the area where we're seeing cuts is with enrollment, because we are not going to need as many teachers, with ninth grade math.
Ninth grade English, is that what you're talking about?
Class size.
Oh, I think that Dr. Cash was saying that is different.
Yeah, I mean, fundamentally, it's not a cut. It's, we're not going to have the revenue, because revenue is generated by students, to allocate to hire teachers if the students don't come. So it's a difference in our expenditures for sure, but we're not saying we have 100 students and we're going to support them with $100 this year, and next year we're going to support them with $80. What we're saying is this year we had 100 and next year we have 80, and as a result we'll only spend $80 worth of staffing on them.
And I'm just going to do a little point of order here, because I can see the relationship to the LCAP. I want to be careful, because this is it's a bigger budget discussion, and so I want to be careful that we don't move too far off the LCAP public hearing. But yeah, I think we need to be talking about this all quite soon.
I think when we come and actually have that conversation, the LCAP, the supplemental monies here will be a part of that conversation, but it'll be one big block of money from the LCAP.
I'm struggling to understand what it is the board needs to know in relationship to that.
I can speak for myself, which is I'm trying to figure out what these big changes are that we are going to see. And so we, in the past, have had a list that came to us and saying, here's the big changes, and whether it was because of revenue or whether it was because of loss of state funding, there was a list that was provided that helped us understand where those big changes were, so that we also could be prepared from a policy standpoint to understand, here's the big changes that the community is going to see. So I don't know how to frame it. I just feel like the first 2-3 years of being on the school board, we had a list that showed us what those big changes were.
Mr. Herron.
I think there'll be a May revise, and at some point, I'm sure we'll get a list, because the last I read in the second, I think, interim, is that we have to make $6.7 million in cuts to get the general fund down to zero. So I presume at some point in the budgetary process, we will see exactly how it's going to be done.
They're not cuts. So what happened is that in the first interim, inaccurate assumptions were presented. I'm sorry to have to say this, but that's exactly what happened. So as a result of that, they appear to be cuts. And those inaccurate assumptions included continuing on with the same amount of staffing that would be required if our enrollment remained the same. While expenditures remained the same, revenue was reduced. So the reality is that you can't have one without the other. If revenue is reduced from the state, our expenditures would necessarily be reduced, because we wouldn't need teachers in those classrooms because we wouldn't have kids.
Well, in the document that we had, I think while you were gone, where we justified the raises that we gave to staff, it was quite clear in that there's $6.7 million in cuts that have to be made at some point. Now, whether you call them cuts or changes in the assumptions or changes in the number, at some point we've got to, balance that out. It was in the
Yes,
Yes,
it
that
happened
document
when
we
I was
filed.
away.
Yeah.
Sorry, That's troubling. I
Parker.
wasn't here to
Yeah,
be able
it
to
was-
address
It was
that.
in that document that explains
Yeah, and we
How we pay
really
for the-
need to move back to the LCAP
Yeah.
now.
Yes.
So,
And I think what the struggle is just the timing, because we're talking about LCAP, we haven't gotten into budget, and I think we're somehow trying to struggle with reconciling what's on the LCAP to what may or may not be in the budget, and what may or may not have been construed as a cut or a different direction in terms of funding.
Just one more question.
Yes.
The bottom number, 9.738 in red, the 2016-17 amount, what is that? Because it doesn't tie with the 8,238,000.
The 8.2 plus the 1.25 gets you to the 9.7.
Not by my math, but...
Yeah. Should be 8.53 or 558.
We're verifying that right now, so.
I just wondered what it was. If that's what it's supposed to be, that's okay.
We'll work on the numbers, verify the numbers, but it is the total amount with also the funding we receive from the public
Okay,
as well.
that wasn't clear.
Yeah. It's like a 9.488.
So if we go to continue on, the BLAST, you'll notice there, the BLAST students, Dos Pueblos High School and La Cuesta. This is a program that we experimented with in 2000. We experimented with in 2015-16. 2015-16, but we no. Wait a minute.
That was 56,000 that's not being carried forward.
Yes. I'm sorry. I have it on, let me see. I'll have to verify what that is. I know we actually had that program in 2015-16. I know we're not having it in 16-17, but it's the program that we decided not to continue. I'll get the 15-16 numbers in the next.
56,000.
Yeah. Any other adjustments you will see there would actually be an increase based on if it involves staffing, it's the 4%. Does impact that, and then possible program expansions would also impact that result as well.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments?
So what would you like to see next board meeting?
I would like to see the rest of the document completed. That's number, I
Okay.
think that's a key one.
All right, what else?
That satisfies me.
I'm looking for a list of where the big changes are, whether they're revenue changes, enrollment changes, or other big changes.
Ms. Parker?
Well, I feel like a lot of that is just on the LCAP piece, because I feel like we have to see so much of it on the larger budget piece still, but just on the LCAP piece, some of it is spelled out here, but we need to give the public an opportunity to listen to this and to see what changes are being considered, including things like ninth grade class size reduction, and make some final decisions about that at the next meeting. Or is it the next meeting that we're taking the vote on it?
Yes.
No, not the vote.
No, it's another public hearing.
The second hearing.
So we have
yes.
loads of time.
Yeah. So would you like?
You're not voting on it until
No.
June 28th.
Yes.
Mr. If you included things on here like BLAST that we're not going to continue, then I think the classroom class size reduction should be on here, and the Common Core should be on here, because to be consistent,
Yes.
those were on, and now they're gone, but it doesn't show on this unless you go through all the documents and see what the differentials are.
Yes, I'll make those corrections. So if I'm hearing correctly, we want to see this document with the adjustments that you mentioned, and also reconciling that 6 million we were talking about.
In a similar...
How we're projecting that.
In a similar way, it would be really helpful if you scroll up to the top, that we're clear about how to follow this, you know, and usually when I see something, I like to read it right to left.
Okay.
And it's forcing me to read right to left, you know, left to right, and then right to left again, you know, and it's like, it's a little confusing. And the other part, too, that's really a little bit confusing, as Mr. Herron's pointing out, for some of the things that we have increased, I'm not seeing the direct increase unless I do that, what I just described. And for the other pieces, when we see 0, it should be a minus somewhere.
Okay.
I think the heading of that column confused me, too. I went through the same, and just take out the words change in. It's, what is going to be the 16-17 supplemental funding?
Okay.
I think in that column makes it much clearer.
Yes.
Got it.
And I just want to say, I'm not looking for every little thing, but I think for me, the reason I'd like to see something, if there's the 6 million or 2 million, whatever it is, impact to the general fund, is because I feel like this is our only opportunity to cross-reference and understand if we need to think differently about the LCAP if we're losing something. I feel like the challenging piece is to do them completely separate, is that we don't necessarily get to reconcile at the same time of saying, oh my gosh, if I would have known that this was being cut, we might have been able to. And that might not be the case. We might see these and there may be absolutely no change, but I think given recent conversations we've had, that's why I'm looking for it. That's the background.
Good.
Thank you.
I guess I would just say,
Mr. Herron,
maybe this document is not where the discussion for 9th grade classroom size reduction should be talked about, because obviously there's the public out there and staff, and maybe that should be a separate discussion item before we get to the LCAP, is to bring us up to date of why we're changing, who wants to change, have we had a study as to the effectiveness, are we giving away something that's been dramatically effective or not?
Okay.
So maybe that kind of discussion shouldn't be held in line with this. Maybe that should be a separate discussion. I think. I don't know.
Well, kind of the idea is that it's the board's opportunity to provide feedback on the LCAP. So I'm a little concerned about if that's I mean, we have 2 items that we're pulling out now, maybe 3 if teacher match is one of them. That would be separate items to be considered. It's your LCAP. It would be a lot easier if it was all discussed and we got input. Yes, no, maybe. We'd take it in, leave it in, increase it, reduce it, etc.
Then I guess my question is, because LCAPs don't align perfectly with contracts, and so that's just the way it is. We may have something in an LCAP that, when it comes as a
teacher match.
Yeah, like teacher match or like K-9 security, it doesn't align. Their contracts aren't up right now. It's something that's up in, in the middle of next year or whenever. And so I don't have a problem with it being in the LCAP now, with the understanding that these are living documents, and that when contracts are actually come up for renewal,
you would say
that's
yes or
the
no.
appropriate time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's where I'm thinking of, and I think that that's what you're thinking of, Ms. Leon.
That's what we've done in the past.
Yeah, so that totally makes sense.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think that again goes back to my earlier point. It's just a timing thing. This is a funky time, and when we're looking at this and we're trying to reconcile this with the larger picture, and it's not an easy one to do.
So question, so we can look at this as being, those funds would be available for that, and if, when the contract came up...
You voted no, then you can reallocate the funds for something
right.
else.
Any other questions, board? If not, we'll end our public hearing and move to our regular agenda, which is item F1, approval of resolution 2015-16-31, recognizing May 15th through the 21st, 2016 as Classified School Employee Week. Dr. Cash.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. We have Paul Rooney, the president of our local CSEA, here tonight, and Mitch Torino will handle this one.
Great. President Dr. Paz and board members, the California Legislature has designated the third full week in May as Classified School Employee Week across the state. The attached resolution requests the board to designate the week of May 15th through 21st, 2016 as Classified School Employee Week in the Santa Barbara Unified School District. The recommendation is for the board to approve. Questions?
I will move to approve with great appreciation for the work that our CSEA employees provide for our students. It's tremendous what they do.
I will second that.
Motion made by Ms. Parker, seconded by Ms. Limon. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, with appreciation. We move to item F2, approval of resolution 2015-16-35, recognizing Teacher Appreciation Week. Dr. Cash.
Well, we have, and I'm not sure if Ms. McBride has officially been elected yet. Oh, so we have the soon-to-be former SBTA president and soon-to-be current SBTA president here representing our teachers, Karen McBride and John Houchin. Mr. Torino.
So board members, each year the Santa Barbara Unified School District and the nation recognize the hard work and contributions that all of our certificated staff have with our students. For the 2015-16 school year, we recognize our amazing teachers for the week of May 2nd through the 6th, 2016. Recognition is the board approve the resolution 25-16-35.
Board.
Can we carry that forward from the 7th to the 14th also, just to...
Well, we're going to carry both of these all the way on to, I think, June 2nd, which is our Employee Appreciation Day, Barbara? June 2nd.
I'll move approval of resolution number 2015-16-35 in great appreciation for our teachers.
I'll second it.
Motion made by Mr. Herron, seconded by Ms. Idelson. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 I will also say aye and appreciate both of you for being here tonight, and go home and appreciate my wife, who's a teacher as well. Thank you. That moves us to item number 3, adoption of resolution number 2015-2016-33, Santa Barbara Unified School District ordering board member elections. Dr. Cash.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. This matter is before you as we have 3 vacant seats, or 3 seats up for re-election, excuse me, in November 2016. And in order for us to place that on the ballot, we need the board to pass this resolution.
I'll be very happy to make the motion for 2015-2016-33.
Second.
A motion made by Mr. Herron, seconded by Ms. Parker. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Moves us to item number 4, adoption of resolution number 2016-34, Santa Barbara Unified School District's policies regarding candidate statements in elections for the Board of Education. That's a long title.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. As board members are aware, board bylaws specifically state that the school district shall guarantee that no candidate requesting a candidate statement will have to pay a cost for that ballot statement exceeding 1/4 of a page in the voter's guide. And this resolution recognizes that and makes it so. And the current cost is $5,131. But that will be finalized when the registrar voter list is finalized. I believe it's May 23rd, I want to say, if that's a Friday.
It's probably going to go up.
Yes, and it does end up, each gets split by 4 for each candidate, but it is extremely expensive.
Yes.
And in fact, I think we may have the most expensive candidate statement for the local candidates, just because of the size of our district. So moved.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
I'll make a comment. I know Dr. Cash just mentioned a $5,000 number. Fortunately, that's the number you have to pay when you register, but you get 3/4 of that back eventually. So it was just close to $5,000 4 years ago, and it ended up costing me about $800. So I did get the refund.
It's still, I look at it as a barrier, because how many people do you know that have $5,000 waiting around to be spent on a candidate statement? Not a lot of us.
They did that because of Ms. Parker. It wasn't that way in 2008. It changed in 2010, I believe.
Yeah, as soon as I ran again, they managed to change it for me.
So the motion was made by Ms. Parker, seconded by Ms. Idelson. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Moves us to item number 5, final approval of reduction in force for certificated staff. Dr. Cash.
Mr. Torina has the next 2 items.
President Paz and board members, on March 8th, 2016, the Board of Education of Santa Barbara School Districts adopted a resolution to reduce particular kinds of services in the 2016-17 school year for certificated staff. The Ed Code requires that the decision be finalized by May 15th. The reason for the reduction in force, as discussed on March 8th, 2016, is as follows. Due to funding issues, the child development programs, after school and preschool, will be decreasing the number of days they are open from 225 to 185 at 4 of their sites during the summer hours. The programs in the after-school program that were impacted are McKinley and Peabody. Peabody is currently an open position, and the teacher in the McKinley program has requested herself a reduction in time from 225 to 185. In the preschool program, the early years classrooms will be reduced from 225 to 185. One of the teachers has already submitted a request to have her time reduced from 225 to 185. In the preschool program, there is a need to reduce 2.0 FTEs, as well as eliminate the Waterford teaching position, and thus a reduction of particular kind of services for that particular program. The recommendation is that the board approve the resolution for the reduction in force for these certificated staff.
Board, any questions, comments?
I'll move to approve Resolution 1516-32.
I'll second it.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Passes. We move to item number 6, approval to assign behavior intervention specialist, board certified behavior analyst, BCBA, and mental health therapist to classified bargaining unit. Dr. Cash.
Mr. Torina.
President Paz and board members, the position of the behavior intervention specialist / board certified behavior analyst is currently a part of the certificated bargaining unit. However, because the position does not require a California teaching credential, it is appropriate that it be assigned to the classified bargaining unit. The mental health therapist position was initially placed in the unrepresented management unit, but the nature of the duties and responsibilities of the position are more aligned with a regular classified position than a management position. The district staff and the California School Employees Association representatives have reviewed the proposed job descriptions that are attached and agree that they belong in the classified unit and not in the certificated unit. District staff has also communicated with the incumbent employees about this reassignment. Recommendation that the board approve the reassignment of the behavior intervention specialist, board certified behavior analyst, and mental health positions to the classified bargaining unit.
Ms. Parker.
Just a couple clarification questions. One, the job descriptions weren't changed, right? They were just reviewed and then...
That is correct.
And then decided by the units that that was the appropriate location. Were there any concerns by the staff that are being shifted?
No.
All right, I will move to approve the change in assignation, let's put it this way, change in assignment for behavior intervention specialist, board certified behavior analyst, and the mental health therapist to classified.
I'll second it.
Motion made by Ms. Parker, seconded by Ms. Idelson. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you.
Moves us to the conference agenda. First item is discussion regarding the facilities priority list for Santa Barbara Unified elementary and secondary school sites, possible facilities bond for November 2016, and we do have a speaker on this item.
Lanny Ebenstein.
Members of the board, Dr. Cash, it's a pleasure to address some comments tonight on this very important item. I'd once again like to commend the staff for its far-sighted and long preparation in preparing this bond. It's good that we remain in early May and it's something that more time will be allowed to fine-tune the proposals that are before you. I think that the idea of bonds of about $130 million for secondary schools and about $58 million for elementary schools, a total of $188 million, is about a good place to be. I think that it would be valuable to stay below $200 million. I don't think that has to be an absolute, but I think that it's something that would be valuable. When it comes to specific projects, I think that in the secondary bond, the idea of $20 million for the Armory for acquisition and development is a good amount. I've earlier suggested that perhaps some acquisition funds could be from the elementary district or the elementary part of the bond. But on the other hand, perhaps it's better that it's an entirely secondary site in that it is located between Santa Barbara Junior High and Santa Barbara High School. One item of concern that remains in the bond is $12 million for window replacement. It remains the case that I don't think that is the best use of funds, and I hope that that further information on that will be forthcoming before you make your final decisions in that area. I would say, too, that with respect to the elementary district, I think the focus on removal of portables is the correct approach. At the same time, I think that numbers of portables to be removed at individual sites is something that can yet be worked on. I think, too, that with respect to the hillside stabilization, that is something that I wonder if that is something that a potential future state bond at some point in time could cover. That sounds like that's an awful lot for something, $6 million for something that that perhaps the state would be willing to fund at some point. And I want to say, too, that I think that what you do eventually approve should be a guide rather than a specific plan.
30 seconds.
Great, thank you. And that it's something that would give people an idea of what's coming. I would say, too, that the nonprofit of which I'm president, the California Center for Public Policy, hopes to host a couple of walkabouts this month at different elementary and junior and high school sites to look at bond issues, and we'll send invitations to members of the board, others members of the community, and administrators if they would like to participate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Cash.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. President. What you have before you tonight, and I'll just take them one at a time, if that's okay. First elementary, then secondary, as opposed to them all together.
Sure.
Okay. Okay. Is an attempt to try to create what it would look like under three scenarios for the elementary and the secondary. As Dr. Ebenstein very accurately points out, our number one priority is portable classroom replacement. When we have 168 portable classrooms in our two districts, it makes great sense for us, and with 30 of them over 30 years old, it makes sense for the district to look at that as a significant priority. The other non-portable replacement projects that are listed really come directly from what we see as kind of the things on fire sort of list that we would have, that are big items that we would want to see addressed. And Dr. Ebenstein does point out it's a big price tag for the hillside stabilization at McKinley Elementary School, but that's really our best guesstimate without civil engineering to go in and test and give us an exact estimate. It's hard to say exactly what it would be. But that's what we're being told is a good conservative figure that could manage that. And it would be great if the state of California somehow found in its way to be able to stabilize our hill, but a fear that I think all of us have is that that we wouldn't want that hill to give way, especially with students on the playground. So that's something that we, as you noted, put in every single scenario. We have David Hetyunk is here, our Director of Facilities, and Kelly Coltrip, our Construction Manager. They both, along with Steve Vizzolini and his team, were very much in charge of looking at the specific detail. The specific portables that were identified, or the numbers of portables on campuses, were based entirely upon their condition. The worst portables to the next worst portables are in each of the scenarios. You will note that we do not propose, though the superintendent would like to, remove all portables from campuses. We simply are removing those that we believe need to be replaced as soon as possible. So with that, I have our two experts in the room and myself, and we'd be happy to look at any questions in relationship to the elementary. I should have prefaced my comments by saying I need direction tonight, because if I need to be able to put before the board proposed resolutions in relationship to a proposed bond measure on the May 24th board meeting, and those proposed resolutions will contain language related to the projects. They won't specifically identify these as the only projects, but they would also specifically identify the amount of each bond measure. So with that, I'll answer questions and take input.
Ms. Parker.
First of all, I really appreciate the list, and I know that it has not widely been disseminated, because otherwise I feel like we would have Peabody Charter here advocating for us to spend the $58 million as opposed to the next amount down, because, wow, a huge difference for them going from 17 portable classrooms. If we reduced it to the next level down, it'll be 10 portable classrooms. And in fact, I feel like that difference has probably the largest impact on the Peabody site. I worry a little bit about these priority lists in the sense that if we go into too much detail, I mean, the reality is that it's still a successful bond if we can get as much down on the list as possible, but it is entirely possible and probable that costs will go up, and then it could end up, for example, that we're only able to replace 14 portable classrooms at Peabody with the amount that we get from the bond. And so when we have it down to this level of specificity, I appreciate what Dr. Evenstein had to say in the sense that we all need to acknowledge that this is a guide, and that we will do, we have our priorities and we will do as much as we can, but it is still a successful bond, even if costs go up and we can't do everything on the priority list. I also want to note that in many places in the document, priority has an R and an I transposed. I just want everybody to know in the public, when we see this, we do recognize that that has happened in a number of locations. And Dr. Evenstein had sent us some information about maybe that there are different ways to structure the bonds themselves in the sense of lowering the cost per 100,000 while still going out for a larger amount. And maybe that's possible, I don't know. I don't really have an issue with the 58 million piece. And I think I have maybe a Mr. Hetyunk question. Who thinks he can lurk at the back of the room, and that is about the National Guard Armory, and that is essentially, I just want to be really careful if we do put it all on the in the secondary area, in the secondary bond, it's completely possible that this district will want to use it for elementary students, for preschool, for after-school activities for younger children. I just want to be sure that there wouldn't be any issues with the community in the way we use that facility if it is only funded by the secondary.
Legally, we've secured an opinion that indicates so.
Okay.
I'm sorry, that indicates that there would
be no problem.
Be no problem.
Mr. Herron.
Yes, I'm very happy with the 58 million, basically because it's 50 portables that'll be gone, and the vast majority of the 58 million is for portable replacement, or not, I shouldn't say replacement, because we're not just replacing them with portables, they are permanent classroom buildings. And I think, and as far as Dr. Ebenstein's talk about how you sell them. That's really a discussion. Once we pass the bond, then the board will make a discussion of how many bonds to sell, and this is based upon, one-third, one-third, one-third. But if it can be shown that it's more beneficial to do 40, 25, 30, 30, at some point next year, that would be that discussion and take place. Because that's going to be a whole new board making the decision of how to sell the bonds.
Ms. Parker?
The only question mark I would have now is the way we present it to the public. If you're talking about, $13 per 100,000 or $10 per 100,000, that can come across quite differently. And so that's a question mark for me. But in terms of the amount, I think $58 million is appropriate. Yep.
Ms. Iwan?
Thank you. I also think $58 million is appropriate. I absolutely see all of this as a guide, and I would want to repeat that over and over. I think I'm one of those people that bought into last week's big news that was pretty much on every major news source about the San Andres faults and the next earthquake. And I mean, that's just the truth, right? Every major news source picked up that story, and it reminds us that this is all great and dandy, but this is a guide, and we don't know what will happen and where our needs will be. It also, I have to say, kind of got me thinking about, well, the Hillside project, the windows, and where does that all fit in to this, and really making sure that as much as we can do, we can be prepared for some of what's being anticipated, although I'm not saying that that's what we need to live and die for. I want to be clear. So I'm okay with the 58 and just want to make sure that all of this is seen as a guide as we move forward.
Ms. Idelson?
I'm okay with the number of the 58, or excuse me, the 48 million for the elementary is what we're looking at.
58 was first.
Got it. Yes. Okay. 58. But as far as the state matching funds, how would that come into play with these numbers?
Well, first, the state has to pass a bond, and it looks like it has qualified and will be on the November ballot. And then all of our qualifying projects, of which we have several already in the pipeline, and we would add to those, would enable us to reach matching funds.
And these would be included in that if we got them going?
Absolutely. You bet.
Okay. So in essence...
There would be other projects that could be done, or bonds that would be unsold.
Okay.
As I admonished last meeting, City College got into big trouble talking about state money that never came.
Yeah.
So I hope we don't go into that same position and give the public the feeling that these numbers are going to all be bigger because the state will come in and help us. I'd rather start on the basis that here's what we're going to do.
Yes, I would agree. And I am also of the agreement that I think from our discussion the last time that portable classrooms and replacing them is a huge priority, especially at the elementary school level. So I'm in agreement of the 58 million number for the elementary school. So I think you have...
I have some good direction there. Thank you. If there are no other comments or questions, I can move on to the secondary. It's going to be interesting because what we're going to deal with is legally, what we just discussed is the SFID, the School Facilities Improvement District. I think colloquially we'll call it elementary, but we're hopeful that we have a really vibrant communication strategy so that our community understands that. So here are the secondary schools, which will be called the Unified School District projects. So we did the same thing. Thank you again to Dave Hetyunk, Kelly Coltrup, and Steve Vezzolini, who's not here. Broke it down into 150, 140, 130. You'll note again that at the top of the list for us, even though it's not as many portables that are needed to be replaced in our secondary schools as our elementary schools, but that in each scenario, we are proposing eliminating the 29 worst portables in our secondary district. And I'll remind board members that 24 of those 29 of the portables that are 41 years or older are in our secondary district. 2 at Goleta Valley, 4 at La Colina, 10 at Dos Pueblos, 2 at San Marcos, and 2 at Santa Barbara High School. And then, again, the projects that are listed below that are projects that have been identified, some of which were identified through the comprehensive facility needs assessment, and then others identified through the facility master planning process. These aren't sexy additional projects, just like they aren't in the elementary schools. These are things that keep our district moving. Roof upgrades and replacement, restroom upgrades, some work in our physical education facilities, an electrical system replacement, which every time I'm with Dave and Steve Izzolini, I think they both hold their breath after they say that. That's at Dos Pueblos something. San Marcos, we need to work on a big site drainage issue. And then there is the window replacement that Dr. Ebenstein talked about. One of the things in relationship to window replacement that we think that if the board wants us to explore that and the community is supportive, is look at exactly what is going to be required by landmarks, and then what will our community be satisfied with in the window replacement. Does it have to be a one-to-one? We're going to, use wood from the early 1900s and glass from the early 1900s, or can we replace windows that create the seal, the envelope, close the envelope on the building that still are architecturally appropriate? Those are discussions that we haven't engaged in a number of steps because it's simply we're not there yet, but that's something I wanted to put out there that they've talked more than me, Dave and Kelly, but the three of us have talked about a lot. And then we really have some issues. The board has been aware of it. Santa Barbara Junior High School in relationship to the cafeteria, the locker rooms, and the changing areas. I think those go without saying. And then the asphalt replacement, if you've spent any time at LaCumba or Goleta Valley Junior High School, you know that those are projects in particular that are long overdue. So with that, we're here to answer questions, and the reductions from 150 to 130 simply are just we're taking things off the list that while we believe are on fire and need to be taken care of, have less priority than the items that remain.
Mr. Herron.
2 or 3 things. Can you amplify on that Santa Barbara Junior High School new gym, changing locker rooms, fitness labs? I know you say we know about that, but can you just let us know a little bit more about what the situation is there?
Well, Dave or Kelly can certainly give you the.
Thank you, board members. Dr. Cash. At Santa Barbara Junior High School, the kitchen, if you've been in there, is really in need of a major renovation. The floor, the ceiling, the health department would love to see a seamless vinyl floor like is required if you were going to have a brand new kitchen from scratch of what they would require. We've kind of been allowed to continue because it's an existing condition, but they continue to write us up on that floor every time they have a health inspection. The locker area and multi-purpose area, while the multi-purpose area is used, the locker area is in pretty deplorable state. There's some major structural issues in there, and it really needs to be addressed.
Ms. Parker?
Hello, board members. Dr. Cash, thanks for having us. Mr. Hetyonk is correct about that. A few more things about the cafeteria. The walk-in is made of wood. It's fairly rotting in some places. The service line is antiquated. The ventilation system and the fire suppression systems are out of date as well. And the building that was added on the back, the MPR, if you've been inside there when they fold down the tables for lunch and you can get an idea of the ventilation is inadequate for serving the students. Also on the, I'd like to point out the number for the gym, changing locker room and fitness labs is a high number because this was taken directly from the facilities master plan estimate. And again, the numbers you see have been escalated to an approximate midpoint of a 6-year program, which would be ending in 2020. December 2020, so
I think that,
why may look a little high.
thank you for bringing that up. I should have said that earlier, because those projects that are down the line, I had them built in. They would have done it without me asking them to, I'm certain of that, but build in the escalating costs so that there really was more of an accurate 2016 look at what it would cost 4, 5, 6 years from now.
Yeah. Thank you. That clarifies that. One more. You talk about a lot of these things are burning issues, but the one that I wonder about is Peabody Stadium Phase 2. Now, part of Phase 2 is things that we didn't do in Phase 1 that we had to scrap.
Correct.
But how much of the 6.2 is that versus how much is truly Phase 2? And is Phase 2 the additional 700 seating capacity in the end zone area? I mean, is Phase 2 the embankment with the 700 more seats?
Yes, it is. It is not permanent seats, but a benched area where you can seat. And it's also, Phase 1 calls for that. Basically, you're going to have a concrete building with seats on top.
Yeah, but how much of...
Phase 1 has nothing, improvements inside that building. So Phase 2 would be the build-out of that building so it can be used, the seating on the side of the hills, and a few other ancillary items, some landscaping that was left off.
Right.
And
that's about it.
But how much of the 6.2 is completing Phase 1?
All of what's in Phase 2 was originally hoped to be accomplished in Phase 1.
No, we had Phase 2 was, I think the seating was, embankment seating was in Phase 2.
Well, originally it was in Phase 1.
But it wasn't in the 17 million that we...
No, it was not.
Yeah,
That
and so
is correct.
it was taken out.
That is correct.
So of the things that were taken out to accomplish Phase 1, how much of the 6.2 is the build-out underneath the concrete stadiums?
We can get that number to you.
Yeah, because I guess my comment is, it's nice to say, okay, we're getting 700 more seating on the embankment, but that's not, to me, a burning issue necessarily, versus a gym or a cafeteria or something that truly affects the kids. I don't know that that additional Phase 2 at the Peabody Stadium truly affects the kids on their daily life, like some of the things that are being reduced from the priority list.
A majority of that, in my opinion, would affect the children a daily life because they would be able then to utilize that space as originally intended for students and staff, as classroom space, offices.
We'll get that number for you.
The 3,000 stadium seats, 2,000 stadium seats doesn't, do we need 700 more seats for kids?
Well, we'd like to have the seating back up to where it was originally. Right now, there is a reduction in the total seats that are now available. It'll be done in Phase 1. So our intent was, at the end of Phase 2, to have enough seating area as there is currently at Peabody Stadium.
I can't remember those numbers, but my only question is that really a burning issue when, if we don't go for 150 and go down to 130, we leave that in, but take out cafeterias, drainage, electrical. We take out some serious things to beautify Peabody Stadium.
Those would be items that we'd be discussing with the board when we go over our priorities, definitely.
We can certainly get that data to you, and that would certainly be helpful. And as we as a community move forward and really sharpening the focus on what the particular projects would be, because I think we still have time to have that conversation, and if the board does choose to pass 2 resolutions, I would imagine the community will launch a campaign to support those resolutions, and that would definitely be part of that conversation.
Well, I'm very happy, Dr. Cash, that the portables remained the focus and the reductions came from other things. My only concern is how you balance those other things.
Got it. Thank you.
Ms. Parker.
I just, first I want to say that the list that I have from Novus Agenda is slightly different than this, and so I'm not sure if this is updated, because, for example, under facility upgrade or replacement, I don't have the Dos Pueblos High School stadium restroom. Do you guys? You're looking at the physical one. I'm looking at the digital one that was linked to Novus Agenda.
For what price? 150, 140, or 130?
For
the one that's up there right now?
Okay, that's the difference. I'm looking in the wrong section, I guess.
Yeah.
All right. So this is what I wanted to ask, though, and that was the Santa Barbara Junior High. Currently, their gym is the multi-purpose room, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
So I want to be careful as we're moving forward that we are talking about this focuses on the unsexy stuff, which is renovation and replacement of things like portables. Because a new gym at that site, while I'm sure that the locker room and the existing gym spaces need work, and certainly I know that the multipurpose room and cafeteria need a lot of work, I want to be careful about the idea of constructing a new gym with then the other three junior highs not having a gym, because none of them they all use their multipurpose rooms as gyms. And I know that was on the long-term facilities master plan, but I don't want to cause an imbalance with the other junior high schools. And so for me, the changing locker rooms and existing fitness spaces renovation totally is a high priority and belongs on this list, but building a new gym does not. And so I don't know if we could have the numbers change slightly. Not that would really help, because I know that there's so many other burning priorities that probably could be taken up with any savings on that. But
part of the issue with that is that, quote, the MPR is the cafeteria, is the kitchen. It's one space. So I'm not an architect, so this is a scary thing for me to now volunteering information. But I don't imagine that we could just do like half of that building, which would include, it sounds, significant structural work and seismic work, and leave the other half in its current condition.
No, I mean, I imagine if you're talking about using the existing structure, that makes total sense. But if it's about building a new gym somewhere else on the campus, then yeah, that's a different story.
But
I think once an architect is assigned and they do their initial investigation into what the costs are for renovation and replacement, those items will be brought to the board for their guidance as to what type of project they wanted to see. We're kind of giving you the worst-case conservative scenario.
I think it would be really helpful. That one in particular stood out for me, because if you look at it from this number, the 150, then you go down to the 130, the number changes. Goes down from 17 to 7. So just understanding that would be really helpful, I think. And I know we're going to hash out the details in the future, but that's a really helpful one. And to Ms. Parker's point, I think it really is an important point, not to nitpick on this one, but I think when we look at it across the board, for example, when we look at Dos Pueblos right there on that screen, football field turf, that doesn't change through 150, 140, 130. We're doing that for a very specific reason. Santa Barbara High School is going to get their turf. San Marcos already has it. DP would have it.
Parity between the three
Exactly.
schools.
So I think it's not a little point, and I think that's not that's the point, that we're trying to make sure that within these little details, we're still making sure that all of it stays at some level of parity. At least the appearance, and if not, we understand it why, as Dr. Cash has pointed out as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Ms. Idelson.
The one that bothers me most, actually, is the intercom, because in this day, wiring for intercom would seem, what's required as far as that?
It's
really go ahead, Dr.
No, I was just going to say, it's not what you think it is.
Okay, explain it.
It will not be a wired intercom system. It would just be,
Mass notification
Yeah, it's really a mass notification system at the schools, which currently don't have them.
And it's required, or is it something that?
Well,
I'm just asking.
I'm going to believe that, let's see,
It is-
one at Goleta Valley Junior High, yes. As a future parent there, I'm going to want them to have the ability to notify every student and staff person that they
So-
need to duck and cover or run or
So is this to each classroom, or is it like a loudspeaker?
would be to every classroom and a loudspeaker.
Okay, and.
Inside and outside.
So with computer systems or internet going to all the rooms?
It would be it would be on our internet system. It would hang on the web.
I see, okay. So is that already in place, or it would
No.
have to all be redone?
We're piloting it, or we're thinking about piloting it somewhere, aren't we?
We're in the process of getting some estimates and some final designs
Yeah.
for Goleta Valley Junior High.
I didn't pick it. This was long before my junior high choice.
Thanks for the clarification.
Ms. Limon.
So I haven't heard a number. And so I don't know if we are looking at, if the board is
Carefully avoiding that,
inclined-
Ms. Limon.
Okay, well, well, if the board's looking at 150, 140, or 130, I was looking at the 140 number, and so I just wanted to see if we wanted to have a discussion. I feel that, as I think has been stated, I see this as a guide, and I don't know what a new board would say, I don't know what the public would say, so I haven't necessarily focused a lot on each item that's listed on there, because my hope is that we would speak with general guidelines as when we talk to the public, but I'm looking at the 140 number. I have no idea what anybody else is looking at.
I think for me, when I look at this list and I go 150, 140, 130, there are some pieces in there that haven't changed. They're not going to change regardless of the number we pick, especially on the, well, obviously on the portable side, that's not going to change. So that for me is like, now it just becomes what focus do we want to go after that? You know, how far deep do we want to go? And for me, and then it also gets really into the question, like it has been raised for us, what is a number that the public is going to be supportive of? And it may be that much of a difference between 130 and 150. $20 million, does it seem like a lot? Yeah, it's a lot. So for me, that's another thing to consider. But I'm comfortable with the 140 number as well. Mr. Herron.
I would come in on the 130, but with a couple caveats. Is I think 13 million for window replacement. I can see the headlines now. I don't see why we don't go with one school and do one batch of windows to see what we can get through the Historical Landmark Committee, and cut off 9 million right there from 130. And then with the Peabody Stadium Phase 2, if there's 5 million in there that was really supposed to be in Phase 2 per our priority list, if that can be delayed also. And so I can see us taking the money saved there from 130 and adding back in some of the things at the cafeteria. I mean, we cut that 3 million. We cut 10 million off the word new gym is probably not a good one to banty about. So I think there's ways, even at 130, to reduce some of the categories and increase some of the categories and still do an awful lot of the things we want to do at 130.
If I can make a comment on the windows, the number you have here is taking the worst windows at each site.
Exactly.
When the board elected to have our sites declared as city landmarks, they did not give up the authority to make the final decision on what is done with those buildings. So we go to landmarks, we work with landmarks, they're great to work with, they have great ideas, architecturally and otherwise, but the final decision on what materials and what type of makeup that would we use for window replacement, that authority does lie with this board and not landmarks. It is a strong advisory that they have with the district, but unlike other entities that are within the city that aren't a school district, when they go before landmarks, whatever they want, that's what they have to do to get their project approved.
You just made my...
It's not so with the school district. This board has the final authority.
You just made my argument, because I've been under the impression just the opposite. I've been under the impression we're under the hammer, we have to do it a certain way. We may want to do it a certain way.
You may want to do it a certain way, and there may be members of the public that are very passionate about keeping those buildings in their original condition and their original format, and when it comes time to do the window replacement, I'm sure the board will get plenty of input.
For $26 million, if I was on the board, I would say, okay, thank you for your input. I'm not spending $26 million.
This board has the final authority on what is done.
You just made my argument. I see no reason to have $13 million for half the windows. I think that number can be pared back dramatically until we go through the process to see what is a good replacement, what would look good.
I mean, I think a question I would have, especially around the windows, is the cost definitively related to replacing them as they currently stand? And would an improved window cost less, meaning different materials that would last a lot longer than, say, wood?
If you use the material other than wood, you would not be able to get the same exact look, but you could do the project for a lesser amount of money if that's the way you want it to go, and not keep the historical significance of the building intact.
I think you can simply say that window replacement is a good idea, but you, as a board, are going to decide what those windows will be and how much you'll pay for them.
Ms. Idelson?
Yeah, I'm just curious, and this is definitely a more detail probably, but would we fall into requiring double-pane windows when we go to replace them?
No, you would not be required to have double-pane windows. It's a two-edged sword. Double-pane windows typically do not last as long. They do fail at a much quicker rate and need to be addressed or replaced. You're not going to get 90 years out of other types of windows, and we've got a long life out of these windows. We would have had a longer life had we been able to properly maintain and paint the buildings.
Right.
But unfortunately, the funds weren't just there, and now they are at an extremely deteriorated state.
And I think for me, when I look at the issue, Ms. Idelson, if we're looking at double pane windows to keep sort of energy costs low, and also make sure our sun doesn't penetrate those classrooms, and they are hot. If you've been in those classrooms in the summer, it's warm, especially if you're facing the sun in that particular case. I think part of that is addressing it in terms of looking at, some of those classrooms didn't have curtains replaced for a long time, and they look crappy. And perhaps even addressing it in that way would address maybe a lower cost as opposed to the windows part.
If you go to some sites, you'll notice that when we do replace our blinds at our historical sites, we are replacing them with a blind that looks similar to what would have been done, and we have done that at McKinley.
Great.
A number of those classrooms that were without blinds and had some deplorable blinds. So if you want to see some nice-looking blinds that reflect the historical nature of the building, visit a couple classrooms there. Get some good examples.
So I've heard 130, 140. How about, you could split the difference, Ms. Parker.
Ooh, let's go for 135, 135.
Going once, going twice.
It's really hard because I know that whatever amount that we go out for, especially given our facilities long-term master plan, that there's so much need, and the costs are likely to be higher than we project. Again, as Ms. Limon has said, and I have said previously, that it's really about a guide, knowing that the costs will be higher. And so I worry a bit about dropping down below 140. Although this is, in the secondary, there are these categories. We're talking about the gym, talking about the windows, and we've had members of the public say, well, what about, just doing less historic on the back side of the building where people don't see it as much, because my gosh, the craftsmanship from the 1920s and 30s is so gorgeous, and it is really integral to the buildings, and so I want to be careful that we don't ruin them by just modernizing willy-nilly and just going for the cheapest possible thing. So I'm comfortable anywhere between 130 and 140. I think that we will be able to get a lot done for these. It's a little bit more flexible in secondary than in elementary.
Ms. Heidelson?
I'm feeling like keeping it under 200 is an important part of this, and I think how we balance that, we can still decide. Yeah, the total. So, I mean, if we're...
It would be 130?
Yeah.
Yeah.
135 still gets us under that.
Yeah, even at 135 or 140, my comments are the same. I would rather we don't focus on window replacements, and nobody's talking about cheap. I mean, we would never do that. But there's got to be a way that they can be done under 26 million. And my comments on Peabody would still be the same. And if you, even at 140, if you cut some of that out, you could do some more of the other things that are really student-oriented that are being cut by going from 150 to 140 to 130. So I just don't want to see in the arguments that we're spending $13 million on windows. And if the Peabody Stadium is something that's not urgent, I'd like to see the numbers. I can't remember the numbers on the capacity, but I'd like to see how important those other 700 seats are to the grand scheme of things.
I think in all of that, I think we're going to have a job ahead of us. This board, the next board, will have a job ahead of us, or they, in terms of telling the story and really making the case. Because it's easy for anyone to look at any of these items and say, that's not really necessary. You could still do it. And so I think that's going to be a challenge for all, for this board and for this district to continue to make the case. And so we have to be ready for that. You know, you can't engage the public into a long, drawn-out discussion about this, but be ready to make it in a succinct kind of a way and make sure we're clear about that, which is the challenge. Ms. Limon.
And I agree that this document, as it reads, there's actually parts in it that can be taken to be sound bites for people who may disagree with going out for a bond. But I also haven't spent a lot of time kind of breaking it down, because at least the last two bonds we've gone through, they haven't actually stayed the same. There's been some ideas that were proposed prior, and there's been changes. So I think whatever we can do as we move forward in any document that we think the public will access is to be very clear that this is all pending a board discussion, and it may also change pending on what for me are safety needs. I really want to, I've talked about the windows. I haven't been the biggest fan, but I also see it as a safety thing. I mean, if these windows are at any little shake or move going to be the first things that comes down on our students, I think parents might feel differently than saying, well, it's only because of the architecture. I mean, I see a safety need here, and I don't know that that's spelled out here, and I don't think that those are the sound bites that people are going to take. But yeah, I'm hoping that whatever we put out forward from here on out, even though this is not related, I think people will use it. But that we're very clear that this could change. It's pending a board conversation and discussion and an assessment of safety.
With that, I would like to propose 135 as our number.
So I've heard four numbers, 130, 135, and 140.
I think we have some consensus around 135.
All right. Thank you very much. Mr. Herron, we'll do our best to get that data to you. Will you need to have that before you feel confident in voting for a secondary resolution?
I'll vote for secondary resolution.
But
I'd like to.
Yeah, we'll get that information to you. I don't want to.
Yeah.
If I can't get it to you I don't believe it'll be a problem. Probably get it to you tomorrow.
I think just that I'm on record of, being in agreement that if we can do windows for far less, that opens up other student-centered things to do on the list, and the same with Peabody. If that really isn't a highly demanded thing, if it's just a nice thing, then that would also open up some $5 million for something else too. So we can make a lot more things with $135 million than is on this list. And this is obviously going to be a decision of a new board next year if it passes. And they can go back and watch this and see.
Thank you.
I just, a quick question on the Armory portion, that's still up in the air as to how much that potentially could be, right?
Right. We will, and the city will, and the district will be conducting an appraisal this summer. Where the department, the military department and the Department of General Services are both encouraged us to do our own separate appraisal.
So is this number of 20 million, is that, what's the source of that number?
That's our best estimate as to what it will cost to purchase it and what it will cost to create a career technical education center.
And I guess, I asked you this, Dr. Cash, this question. If we pass a bond that includes $20 million for the Armory, and we end up, for a multitude of reasons, not buying it, what happens to that $20 million that's authorized in the bond?
Well, the board could decide to spend it on other projects that were authorized, or the board could decide not to issue those bonds.
Great. Any more comments, questions?
Well, the other question potentially down the road, and I think Mrs. Parker corrected me on this, is if we did want to go something like 40-30-30 or 50-25-25, that does affect the tax rate. So it'd be nice to know in advance how that changes the tax rate based upon front-loading it. And even if we front-loaded it, do we have the capacity to spend that money in 3 years? Or 80, I think we have to spend 85% of it?
That's exactly.
And do we have that capacity?
Because we would not only have to get architects on board, but we would have to complete designs, get through the process of division of the state architect approval, and let the contracts and get them encumbered, and expend a majority of those contracts in a 3-year period. And if you sell a very large number of bonds in the beginning, you may find yourself with some IRS
well, that's my question.
Yeah.
I mean, if you even went 40-30-30, do we have the capacity to spend 40% of these bonds in the first, spend 40% of the bonds in the first 3 years? Would that be a stretch?
First 3 years, I would say yes. First 5 years, I'd say doable.
But do we have to do it in 3 years?
Well, you have to spend, I believe it's 85% of that money within that 3-year period to avoid penalties.
Right.
But I'd refer to other people that are more knowledgeable.
So why don't you come forward? Mr. Herron's asking the question. As long as is the board comfortable, I feel like I have guidance in relationship to the facilities part. So that is a great dovetail to Erwin, who's here from KNN, who can answer those questions, and he did provide you with some information.
Yeah, we prepared the presentation.
Brian, can you put up his PowerPoint? Thank you.
Sure. I think there's a slide in there that talks about the spend down rules. It's a expectations test when you go to the issuance of bonds. Here it is. Nope, just back one. So you have to be, at the issuance of the bonds, you have to reasonably expect that you will expend 85% of the proceeds of the bond within 3 years of the issuance. It's not an actual facts test, it's at the issuance.
Yeah. And that was my question. Is that reasonable?
That we could do that? Well, it's hard to say at this particular point.
I think what is being related to us is it would take a lot of work, and it would be a lot of things happening, like dominoes going in the right direction.
Yeah, there are certain things that I'm going to be most like, well, maybe not. It probably won't be me, actually. It'll probably be the next superintendent that I would, if I was still sitting here, would do, and that would be to begin assigning projects to architects or ideas to architects so that they, if the bond, first of all, I want to be very clear, if the board approves the resolutions are placed on the ballot, the voters approve the bonds, then that projects would be ready to go because we've had architects. You've already selected the architectural firms for future facility projects. This would certainly be in line with those. that they would hit the ground running, so that I would hope that the board entertains that sort of workflow. That certainly would be something I know Mr. Hetjunk and Mr. Coltrip would advise.
And as Kelly will hopefully agree with me, that when you start planning these things, you're going to have a great deal of disturbance at your school sites once construction starts. We're going to be moving around portables for interim housing, working with site administrators on how to phase things, and so there's a lot of planning. And so once we get a little further down the road with that planning, we can better advise the board on how much we think we can get accomplished within the first 3 years. But I think 40% of the total bonds sold at the very beginning and accomplished in 3 years might be a little bit overambitious.
There'd be 77 million.
Yes. Yeah.
Ms. Parker, and then Ms. Edelson.
Just a question on what other school districts do with a bond of this size. Is it pretty typical that they don't attempt to do this 85% within the first 3 years? In the sense of that they try to sell more up front? I don't know what is sort of the practice at other districts.
So the variables are local contractors and interest rates. So there really isn't a rule of thumb.
As part of the planning process between, if the board approves the resolution and it gets put on the ballot, we're going to be doing some preliminary planning in case this does pass, that we're not then starting to do our planning. Kelly and I will be working, putting together scenarios, putting together estimates. What do we think we can get done at what schools in the quickest possible manner, and then come to you with a dollar amount that we think we can accomplish within 3 years. So that's something we're going to be doing over the next 6 months if the board decides to place this initiative on the ballot.
Ms. Edelson.
So just so I'm clear, so when they use the terminology, the date it's issued, is that the date the bond passes the voters, or is that the date that
when you sell them?
When you sell them. So that doesn't generally happen immediately after they're passed, correct?
Correct.
So when you sell them, could be 6 months, it could be 2 years, or
hopefully it's not 2 years. Hopefully
no, but I'm just saying that's defined by when the choice is to sell them.
Yes,
Okay.
And the board will make those decisions.
Yeah. And even when you get ready to sell, there's which week do you want to sell based on what's happening in the market at that time.
We've gone through that scenario. It must have been prior to your, I remember sitting actually with Ms. Jeté, and we were either on the phone with Mr. Herron or he was with us personally when we were
I was with you.
having that conversation.
At
we were
San
like
Marcos.
in a hallway somewhere.
San Marcos.
At San Marcos, okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Ms. Limon.
In our two previous bonds, what were they, I and J, or I have my letters
P and
confused.
Q.
Q and R.
Q and R, but then there was
We
the...
had R, and we had M.
Before that,
Well, and the two, I was like, I don't remember what letters they were, but did we, in any scenario, actually use 85% within the first 3 years?
Did we what?
Did we reach the 85% in any scenario in the first 3
To my
years?
knowledge, we were not penalized based on any amounts that we've sold.
And and I'm just thinking as far as practice as opposed to penalties, of just like, have we ever with past bonds?
We've never
I think
been
we
penalized.
always have,
Always.
because
Yes.
we've always met that test, correct?
always met
We
that
sold few enough that we met that test.
And I think with Measure V, if I remember right, we sold 1/3 of the bonds with the first sale, but I have to go back and check. So, it was, but that was a much smaller dollar amount than what we're talking about now, about half.
Mr. Herron.
Yeah, the scenarios we have in front of us are based upon 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. And for 135,000, it's 1150 per 100,000.
Yes, thereabouts, correct.
Yeah, so if we went to 40, next one.
Next one.
Oh.
This one, yeah.
If we went to 40%, 30,
Erwin,
30.
why don't you get in front of the mic?
Sure.
If we went 40, 30, 30, since this is based upon, I understand, 1/3, 1/3, 1/3,
Yeah.
how would that 1150 change?
It would be higher.
But very much, or?
We baked in assumed interest rate increases.
Right.
So, obviously it depends on the ultimate rates at the time of borrowing. If you were able to achieve lower interest rates, you could...
Well, based upon the scenario of your interest rates we have in front of us.
Right. I would have to run those numbers for you, but yes, it would be higher.
Would it jump to 12 or 13 or?
I wouldn't be able to hazard a guess right now. It wouldn't be that substantially more, I would say.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah. Because it really depends on the overall amortization of the bonds, because you would just shift some of the bonds around from the future issuances. And again, since we're assuming higher interest rates in each incremental issuance, you are saving money in theory, at least according to the model, because you're not issuing bonds at the highest interest rates in that series, the third series, Series C. You're moving them from C to A. But yeah, the menu of options here are pretty. There's very little difference in terms of the tax levy numbers, as you can see.
Yeah. So with this scenario, Ms. Parker, we'd be talking 1150. If we wanted to go 40, 30, 30, it'd be something higher. But maybe we should have that number just to know. But or we can just say to the public, we're going to go to. I hate to get back into this, hey, it's going to be 1150, and then the board says, oh, no, we're going to do something different.
Yeah, I think it'd be really good to be careful about that.
Yeah, that's what we got in trouble before, but you're going to have to say something. You're going to have to use some number.
Right, there's other, obviously, financial alternatives when you actually go to issue bonds. This assumes 25-year bonds. If you amortize it over a 30-year period, you have a lower tax rate in each year. Of course, you would pay more interest because you're extending bonds by 5 years. So that's a way for tax rate management that you could do at the time of issuance.
What is the length of the time this is based on?
25-year bonds.
25, okay.
So each issuance is 25 years, not 25 years in aggregate.
So Irwin has this very beautiful presentation, and it changed. So the actual one that's on that you're going to see up here is you have a hard copy in front of you, and the purpose of it was to address the questions the board raised and provide further clarification on the issues raised. We can do one of two things. We can have Irwin go through each slide, or if you would like, or he can address any questions or concerns that you have in relationship to this. What would the board like?
Ms. Lima?
Well, since we went through some of the slides on the 26th, I would say either go through, the 26th. Go through either only the bonding capacity slide was different? That's right?
Basically, and we have a market update slide, and then we have a this slide here about tax-exempt bonds. So
maybe the new slides.
Right.
Just point out, I think the tax bracket, tax levy for the elementary and the secondary, that's the key number.
Exactly. That's the menu of options.
We've given the number that we're looking for. Just show us what the tax rate is for those two numbers.
Sure. I'll go quickly through the new slides. This is the current market update. Interest rates are very close to all-time historical lows. In fact, the bond buyer general obligation bond index was 5 basis points, 0.05% off of its lowest ever rate in history. So this, in theory, this would be a great time to issue general obligation bonds. We've reviewed this slide regarding tax-exempt bonds and the requirements. This is our assumptions. From the last comments received on the last presentation, we've actually, in working with Bond Counsel, we have presented a lower assessed valuation growth, one that starts for the SFID elementary school district at 4%, then decreases to 350 over time, and for the secondary or unified school district, one that starts at 450 and then decreases to 4% over time. And the reason is that the SFID is just geographically smaller. They've had relatively similar growth rates, but because of the risk of the smaller size district, we have assumed a lower growth rate. So this is the results from for the elementary school, the SFID. Again, you can see the 38 to 58 million highlighted in bold and underlined, and then by tax levy, those are the other scenarios. We were asked to run 950, 1050, $11.50, $12.50, $13, and $14. And so that's the reason why those are sort of not rounded numbers. That's just the number that is produced with that tax levy. And similarly sized tax levies and the resulting par amounts for the secondary school or unified school district. And I just attached the slides from last time just so they're there for the board's reference.
Are there any questions?
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you taking the time to be here.
All right. Board, are we ready to move on to item number 2 on our conference agenda? Discussion of agreement with Parent Square Inc. Dr. Cash.
I'm going to ask Todd Rickman to make this presentation.
Good evening, President Paz, board members. I have a short and sad story to tell you. We had a parent calling system for a long time that we were very happy with, called Teleparent. That system was purchased by a really large company, which will remain nameless, and subsequently we were forced onto their system. With that, we had all sorts of problems, and customer service, which we had been really used to being fabulous, became really poor. So about a year and a half ago, we looked for another system. We found one we were very happy with, and we implemented it. 2 weeks into our implementation, we got a letter from that company that they too had been acquired by the same company that we had been trying to escape. We tried to stick it out with the company, but again, we were forced to their platform and subjected to the same issues with customer service. So what I'm bringing forth today is a proposal to move to Parent Square, which is a company that we already use for our parent engagement piece. They have developed a parent calling system and messaging system that we're already testing at Dos Pueblos High School, Santa Barbara Junior High, and Roosevelt. And we've been testing it for a couple of months now with great success. They are completely on Parent Square over the company we're with, and we're very happy with the product. So I bring forth for your consideration this agreement.
Ms. Limon.
Thank you. Thank you. I just have one question, and it has to do with some feedback that we've received that Parent Square does some things really well and some things for our bilingual community less well. Thoughts and feedback about how going into an agreement with that concern in mind?
So that's not really Parent Square's platform. That is the use of Google Translate, which we have, we heard that same feedback. We disabled Google Translate, and we actually met with Parent Square today. The nice thing about Parent Square is their office is literally 2 blocks up, so they're frequently here trying to build what we need. And we're working on a workflow with them that will send messages. That's more the parent engagement piece than the piece that I'm talking about, the phone calls. But it's I think even more important because that's what reaches our parents most of the time. We were meeting with them today to look at a workflow that would allow us to send messages to a person to translate. And so as we try to develop capacity, I don't know, did the board get the message, that the email that Dr. Mora sent to our families?
Yes, they did.
Okay. So as we build capacity, they're right there with us trying to help us find a way to reach all of our families in a way that's comprehensible and not insulting.
Okay, good. Well, that's what I want to hear, that in all areas of communication, they're willing to work with us to make sure that we reach all of our families.
Yeah, in fact, I would say go above and beyond for us because they realize that we're such a forward-leaning district in this area that this is going to become an issue for their other clients, so they're happy to help us work through it because they think it will benefit them in the long run.
Great, thank you.
Ms. Parker.
So just to be clear, just on the voice piece, on the telephone messages that we get, what would happen previously would be that if a parent was identified as a Spanish speaking at home, they would get a completely separate message in Spanish, that was just, a recorded voice of somebody speaking Spanish, and English for English speakers, and I assume that ParentsWare has that capacity at this time.
Absolutely, and also they can send push notifications via their app in different languages, text messages if parents choose to in different languages, along with the voice piece and email. So
Okay.
parents have a wide variety of options that they can choose to be notified.
I completely support this, and I love that it's a local company. I guess my biggest concern is, have you talked to them and gotten in writing that they will not take an offer from this big unnamed company and be taken over, since that seems to be what that big company is doing?
Yeah, well, as good as their word can be, and which I think is great, they have said that they're in this for the long haul, and they're really dedicated to helping us since we're their local school district and their parents in our district as well.
Ms. Idelson?
I have a question. So in situations, and in this terms of this company where you have multiple children in different schools, are they up to date on not repetitive messages, say when something's coming from the district, that they will be smart about it and be able to
Absolutely.
see one family, one message?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
And the other thing is that what's really nice, like I said, anytime we've had any issues, and I would say we've had very few, they're literally a phone call away, and they're on top of it. So they've been wonderful.
Good.
And I just want to make a comment. I think it's good that we're starting off with them and rolling this out in sort of stages. Gives us the opportunity to give them feedback, and it's only going to help them as well as us improve what's happening. So I'm happy to hear that they're open to that and they're listening, which I think will end up with a better product and perhaps we had even before. So I'm really supportive of this, and I think, Board, this can come back as a consent agenda item. Yes?
Great,
Thank you.
very much.
Summer school preview. Dr. Cash.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Well, you heard from our secondary schools while I was away. Now you have an opportunity to hear what's happening on our elementary campuses this summer. Dr. Ramirez.
Hi, good evening. Good evening, Dr. Paz, Board. I'm here to just present our summer learning opportunities at our elementaries, and I think you've already had an opportunity to review the document, so I'd be glad to answer any questions or provide any further details.
Ms. Parker.
I just was wondering, in comparison to 2015, are there any major changes in terms of numbers served or programs offered?
There are actually a few. We are actually, some of these are external partnerships that will carry over from the 14-15 school year into 15-16, I guess looking now into fiscal 2016. But there are some things that we're developing by way of some more focused intervention, particularly in the lower grades. And we're looking also, some of our school sites are also looking at different ways of onboarding our incoming TKK students, which we're looking to keep a very close eye on as we look to provide just better opportunities to outreach to students during those summer months, and also to ensure that their transition is better and better with each cohort that comes in. So some of those are going to be some of the subtle differences that you'll see, and so we're really excited about those opportunities as well.
Any other comments, Board? Thank you.
Thank you.
Moves us to the last item on our agenda, update on search for new superintendent. The one item that I can report is that our search firm met with a number of candidates, I believe, last Saturday in Los Angeles, went through a number of them, and those candidates were the ones that met the best matched the profile that they had built from all of the input from the community, as well as the board and a number of other people. And so they went through that, and now they have whittled down the number, and they will present that slate of potential potential superintendent to the board at its meeting a week from today on Tuesday, May 17, 2016. We will have a meeting here at 5 p.m. Ms. Parker.
Will that meeting be, besides the opening, will that be completely in closed session?
I believe it is.
Okay, good.
Yes. But anyone from the public is welcome to comment on that item. It is a closed session item, but you can comment in the beginning of that meeting if you have anything you would like to say. Anything else, board? Any coming events? Ms. Parker.
On the list, I feel like if I just thought for a little bit more, there'd be so much coming before we meet again, but I do want to point out that this Thursday is the County School Boards Association dinner up in Buellton, along with many other things. So.
Yes, there are a number of items. I will not.
The season. It's beginning.
Yes, I will not be able to attend. I am attending a City College event as part of the Santa Barbara City College Foundation Board. Future agenda items, board. No items. Great. Can I ask for an adjournment? All right, great. Thank you.